Hi, how are you? Today I will be talking about breaking the silence. My name is Tashara Moncrief, and I am the founder of a nonprofit organization we call Women of Refined Gold. We are a domestic violence prevention program. Our organization was started in 2013. So one of our goals is to prevent teen violence or domestic violence, and also to help women that have gone through domestic violence or need help coming out of domestic violence. Today, I'll be sharing with you a little my story to start breaking the silence on domestic violence. And as well, I will also define 5 types of domestic violence and identify them. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. I hope that this recording will be very helpful. It will be impactful as well. As I've said, I am a domestic violence survivor. At the age of 16, I went through domestic violence. At first, when I experienced my first fight in a relationship, I didn't think much of it. But as time went on, it became a cycle. It became a cycle that happened over and over again. So then at that point, I realized that I was in a domestic violence situation. Did I walk away? Did I leave? No, I didn't. That's that person people ask, well, why didn't you leave? Why did you stay? There are so many reasons people have for leaving, for having, for staying. But I can probably say in my adult years, I realized I may have stayed in the relationship due to there was some voids in my life. My father, he was in my life, but my father did not talk to me. He did not talk about the do's and don'ts of getting into a relationship, what to look for, what not to look for. So of course I had to find out on my own. So that is what I think unconsciously pushed me into a domestic violence situation. Now at that age, at that time, I had had my first child at the age of 15. So to know I was a young mother and then becoming a product of domestic violence, that was a lot for me. There are times I would go to school. No one knew what I was going through because I didn't have those bruises on the outside, but on the inside, I was hurting emotionally, mentally, physically. I was hurting on the inside, but I didn't tell anybody because I was ashamed. I didn't want anybody to know that, hey, she's in this relationship, she's being stupid. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't be in that type of, people never know what they will find themselves in, how they will react to it. So for me, I suffered in silence because I didn't tell anybody. Um, my teachers, no one never just paid attention. Well, why aren't you coming to school for weeks at a time? Why are you missing so many days of school? No one really asked any questions when I would come back. Is that they're looking at me like, what are you here for? You haven't been all week. You're not gonna pass. So that really frustrated me to that I would just leave school in the middle of the day because I was so far behind. No one wanted to know what was going on with me. So I felt alone all over again. I felt like, hey, this is really a hard place for me and no one wants to find out. But of course, you don't want to tell anybody what is going on. So for me, domestic violence lasted me from 16 to I was 33, a long time. So you can imagine in between that. I mean, I went through so many different emotions. I went through depression. I went through withdrawal. I didn't want to be around anybody. I didn't want to leave the home. Even doing that 16 to 33, I ended up having 2 more daughters. So at this time, you can imagine how I'm feeling. Hey, I have 3 daughters, and they have seen me cry. They've seen me hurt. They've seen, at times, they've seen the abuse that is going on. They were not physically abused, but yes, they were affected by it because they saw that I was hurting and they couldn't do anything to help me. Well, that went on for years. I had literally, my emotions had literally turned off. I didn't feel anything. I didn't think about things. I functioned. I went to work. I went to school. Whatever I needed to do, I functioned. But mentally and emotionally, I was disconnected. I didn't. People will ask me, "How do you feel?" I would say, "I don't know." And they were like, "Huh?" And I literally did not know how I felt because I literally turned off my emotions. And so that is just a short snippet of my early life going through domestic violence. In 2009, I decided, hey, I can't do this anymore. And I left that relationship. Today, it has been 6 years. But I didn't want to take what I went through and just say, hey, I got through it. That's it. No, I wanted to make a difference in other people's lives. I wanted to help other young girls and other women who have gone through those things, who are trying to come through those things. And I wanted to help them. And that's why we started Women of Refined Gold. We have workshops. We have girls' summer program. We go out and talk to other groups about domestic violence. We talk about self-esteem because I understand when that self-esteem is broken down, that's the first thing that's hard to build back up. So those are the things that we focus on. We focus on identifying unhealthy relationships. How do I even know I'm in an unhealthy relationship? How do I know it's toxic for me? Just because we may think, well, they should automatically know. But if they grew up in an environment where that was their life, that they saw it, then they may have grown into believing that's what a relationship is all about. So that's why Women of Refined Gold started. Now, I had to come up with a name for it, and I didn't know how. And I'll share with you just a short story of how our name came about. In 2007, I was sitting, I was reading the Bible, and God said, I'm refining you as gold. So I said, okay, what does that mean? He took me to Job 23:10 that says, talks about refining gold. Okay, I still didn't understand. So then God broke it down. He said, when gold goes through purification, you have to burn off all of the impurities. And he said it has to go through a high level of heat. So God knew where I was. But what God was saying was, you're going to go through some things. You're going to feel some things. But when you come out, you're going to come out good as gold. So in 2007, that stuck with me. 2009, when I started thinking of a name for the organization, I thought of everything but that. So God brought it back to my remembrance. I said, okay, God. So that's how Women of Refined Gold name came about. I'll also tell you a little story. I met a guy in 2014 because God knows that sometimes we don't have a full understanding of the things that he tells us. Well, I met a guy that said, hey, me and my church, we talked about refining gold and they wanted to know the process. A lady went, she talked to a person that refines gold, and he pretty much went through the steps of how gold was refined. So her one question was, how do I know when it's refined? He said, when I can see myself in it. That spoke volumes to me. All I could say was, wow. Because basically what God was saying was, when you come out, you're going to be able to see me in you. You're going to be able to see that I was with you the whole time. So that was a revelation, that really summed up everything God was saying concerning Women of Refined Gold. And so that name is so dear and near to my heart. And with Women of Refined Gold, we focus on values that we hold true to our organization. We focus on personal development, responsibility, awareness, respect, and leadership. I believe that all of those has to take place in order for us to properly heal, in order for us to properly get through a hard place in our life. So like I said, there's personal development. We have to take responsibility. We have to be aware. And also we have to have respect and we have to learn leadership, So despite of what we come through, despite of what we go through, there's always a purpose and a plan if we are strong. And if we say, hey, I'm not going to let my situation define me, but I'm going to define my situation. I tell people, I don't consider myself a victim. I consider myself a victor because I am victorious. I came out of that situation. I took what the enemy meant for evil, and I turned it around, and God turned it around for good. And so because God kept my mind, he kept me from going on drugs, he kept me from becoming an alcoholic, he kept me from selling my body. A lot of people don't come through with that same testimony, but God knew that despite of what I went through, he knew that I would be strong and that I would come through it, because he had another purpose and plan, and that was to help other people. I've learned, how can I impact people if I never tell my story? My testimony is what's going to help somebody else come through those same situations. So before we end this session, we're going to identify the 5 different types of domestic violence. And so over the next 10 days, we are going to break down each level, and we're going to talk about how it affects us, and just use some examples of how we can overcome it, how we can rise from it. So the first one we're going to identify, number 1, is emotional abuse. What is emotional abuse? It is undermining or attempting to undermine a victim's self-worth. So when a abuser know, hey, I can get into their minds, I got them, because they're going to feel like I'm worthless. No one else is going to want me. The second one is psychological. Psychological is stealing or attempting to instill fear. See, fear is where when a person has you in a place of fear, it's going to keep you in a place longer than you desire to be. So when you instill that fear, you're going to be scared to do anything differently or do anything else. Physical. Inflicting or attempting to inflict physical injury. And so that's just them basically kicking, choking, biting, hitting you with things. That's what physical abuse is. Sexual abuse. That is coercing or attempting to coerce sexual contact without consent. Just because they think you're in a relationship, they think, well, that's not abuse. But if you're not agreeing to it, that is abuse. When you're being forced to do something you're not, that is a form of abuse. And our last one is financial. Yeah, I know you're surprised. You didn't think you never would have thought financial was a form of abuse. But what financial is making or attempting to make the victim financially dependent upon that one person. So that person will have control of all of the finances, and they will begin to tell you, well, if you leave, you're not going to be able to pay your bills. You're not going to pay your car note. You're not going to be able to do this and do that. So if you are dependent on a person for finances because you don't make your own, then that is a form of abuse, because they are using that to their advantage. I hope that the information I have shared today has been very helpful. Tomorrow we will be continuing our 10-day Breaking the Silence on Domestic Violence. Tune in tomorrow. And as I've said, Women of Refined Gold values are personal development, responsibility, awareness, respect, and leadership. Thank you, and join us tomorrow.